Hi, I'm Katie, and this is the 21st episode of Ornamentations, which will feature some exciting news, a new kit launch, some FFOs, some new whips, and some treasures from years past that I recently unearthed. If you are new to my channel, and I know we have a lot of new subscribers, welcome. I think many of you found me through the Addict's recent Flosstube. This is a channel about all of my adventures in stitching. I do surface embroidery, cross stitch, counted work. I have an interest in textile history, and we talk about that sometimes. And I am currently working a 17th century style embroidered casket, which doesn't mean box for dead people, but rather a very elaborate embroidered box of the type that were worked by 17th century English schoolgirls. That's an ongoing project that I am showing here on the channel, although not today. This episode will be all about counted work because I have not put in a single stitch on my panel since I showed it to you last 2 weeks ago. But first exciting news today is that we have a second finish of the Simple Harmony box, which you may have seen on the Addict's most recent Flosstube. This is by Carrie Rubiz. I'm sorry, I probably mangled your name. And it is an absolutely beautiful finish in the same colorway that I myself used with the Soie Gobelins 779, that vibrant, luscious, bright red. The gilt accentuate accents, and then the gilt trim from Thistle Threads. Carrie did an outstanding job with the finishing. Her prize, the thread palette from Access Commodities, is on its way to her, and I hope that you enjoy seeing her finish as much as I myself have, because it's absolutely stunning. It is superb. I can't see a wrinkle on there. It's all square. It's gorgeous. Both Jane, our first finisher, and Carrie have done absolutely outstanding jobs, and I was just beyond thrilled to see this. There is still a third prize up for grabs, and that is the set of antique needlework tools, which are a bone needle case, lane tool, and crochet hook, and then this mother of pearl thread winder, which would be beautiful and historically accurate sewing tools to put in your Simple Harmony box. So I'm excited to see who will claim the third prize for the third finish. And in the meantime, I hope you'll keep posting your starts, your progress, and your finishes to the hashtag on Instagram, Simple Harmony SIL, and sharing your photos, because it's been wonderful to see so many of you engaging with the project and the progress that you're making. It really is exciting to see the first finishes. I just don't really have words for that. But I will get now to my own stitching and finishing. We'll start with the finish of the paler colorway of the rabbit and the rose. I showed this to you on the last episode, stitched but not yet finished into an object. This is the same simple pillow finish that I did on my mom's. I had thought about doing the beaded looped edging on this, but decided that really this is beautiful and complete in and of itself. I used a gorgeous Duchess silk satin to back it, and that brings me to the question I asked you in the last episode, which is, would you be interested in a kit? And if so, which colorway, the bolder or the paler? And there were votes for both, but it overwhelmingly was the paler colorway, which you can see here. And so I am very excited to offer to you today kits for the rabbit and the rose. So the kit is $68. It's a full silk conversion. It includes the ground fabric, the backing Duchess silk satin that I myself used, and then the little embellishments. So the sequin and bead for the eye, and then thread to make the fluffy bunny tail. I have substituted Soie d'Alger in the same color for the Soie Oval that I myself used. I think it's easier to work with and more versatile. So you can either use this to do the bunny's tail in simple crosses if you don't want to engage with the specialty stitch, or you can use it for cut turkey stitch. It will fluff up beautifully and you'll get a very similar effect. So things to know about the kit. This does not include the chart. I think a lot of people already have it, and I don't have a wholesale account with Hoffman. So this is strictly a materials kit, which includes all of the silk colors, the Soie d'Alger for the bunny tail, the bead and sequin for the eye embellishment. I've got the conversion table and some notes on the back, and it's got your linen and Duchess silk satin to make your pillow finish. It's available on my website. I'll put it below and also in the description. And then this is a look at the thread palette. So this is a mix of Soie Gobelins, Soie 103, and then for the basket, Soie de Paris. These are luscious, luscious, luscious spring colors. And I think just the beauty of silk and the beauty of the colors is one of the reasons why I chose this as a kit. So Brenda and Laura occasionally talk about the idea of something being silk worthy. And I think it's a valid question. Why would such a small project be considered silk worthy? So for me, the answer is that I always stitch with silk, because I think if something is worth the time I put into the stitching, then it's worth the pleasure I get from stitching with silk and then seeing the beautiful, shiny, and lustrous results. But I think if that's not your answer, the question of why is this project silk worthy, I think it's the beauty of the colors, the joy you'll get from stitching with them, and the joy you'll get in seeing the finished project. And just as a footnote, they're also versatile colors. So these are 50mm spools. That is way more thread than you're gonna need for the rabbit and the rose. And I repeat colors a lot in my projects. So about half of the colors in the rabbit and the rose also apply to the next stitch that I'm going to show you today. A few other things about the kit. So, it was hard to judge what demand would be, so I've made up a very limited number of kits, and then if I have misjudged demand and they sell out, I will take pre-orders for 1 week, but after that it'll be gone. This is a limited availability and I don't intend to stock it indefinitely. So if you're interested, head over to my website, check it out. I hope if you do buy the kit, you will enjoy the rabbit and the rose as much as I have. This project really appealed to me from the beginning because of the beauty of the colors. I love spring as a season, but I also love spring colors. Kind of funny story about this pattern I meant to tell you last time and forgot was I told you I stitched this for my mom for Mother's Day first, and then I decided to stitch it again for myself. And I did some of the stitching on this guy in front of my mom when we were stitching together, and she hadn't seen this pattern yet because it was a new market release, and she plucked it up off the table. She started looking at us. Oh my gosh, oh Katie, this is beautiful. Oh, I love the colors, and look at the roses. Oh my, I have to stitch this for myself. I'm gonna go order the pattern, need the threads, and I'm sitting there like, oh, no, please don't do that. Mother's Day is right around the corner. Please don't stitch it yourself, Mom. So it did kind of ruin the surprise, but I think she enjoyed having the rabbit in the rose for herself, even if it wasn't a surprise. So it's a beautiful little stitch. I'm very fond of it. And that is the rabbit and the rose. And so my next stitch that I did recently was from Seasons of the Heart, Spring, which a lot of people have been stitching recently. I know many are already moving into patriotic, but as I said, I love the colors of spring. They call to me. There's just something about these that, these are my colors. Pale and beautiful. It's just what speaks to me. So I was all for stitching Spring, Seasons of the Heart, again by Brenda Gervais, and this is my finish. So I will put the conversion. This is again an original conversion in silks in the description below. I won't be kidding all of my stitches. This and then the next project I'm going to show you today will not be kits. We'll see how this goes, but my thought going in is that I would kit projects where I feel like there's something especially special about the colors, something that calls for silk or something that really moves me. And as much as I enjoyed spring, let's see how you like the rabbit and the rose first. So the conversion for the rabbit and the conversion for spring will be posted in the description below. These are my colors and they are absolutely luscious. Several of these, as I said, are in the rabbit and the rose, so you will have about half of the threads that you need if you buy the rabbit and the rose kit. So as many people have done, I decided to leave out the spring tag and instead carry the border all the way across. And I tried to do a salt box stitcher and do the entire border first. Actually, not tried, I did do the entire border first, and I was feeling very proud of myself and very adult when I started to put the grass in and realized that I made a very big oops. Can you see what it is? It's actually pretty forgiving due to the pillow format, thank God. The grass is skewed relative to the border because right here I went down 4 instead of going down 3, and then I came up 3, which was correct, which put all of this 1 stitch down. And I realized that when I started laying in the grass and realized that the border looked skewed relative to the grass, and what on earth had I done? How do you get on a diagonal on a grid? I figured it out. I looked at everything I would have to take out, and I decided that I could live with the little oops in the border on the theory that by the time that this was in a rounded pillow finish, you probably wouldn't notice the slight skew here. And I think it works actually. I know it's there, and of course you can see it now that I've pointed it out, but it's not like somebody's gonna look at this and go, oh my God, what is wrong with that? Oh, it's awful, it's terrible. So it is what it is. As Jean of the Attic likes to say, you should always be moving forward and not back. And I felt like this was an error that I could live with, because these two are gonna hang out and be decoration spring friends on my bookcase. And so I can just kind of overlap the little oops when I display them together. It's gonna work really well. And I am thinking about doing a beaded looped edging in the crystal golden shadow here. Oh, and I forgot what I was going to show you as my example, so I'm going to pause this 1 second. Okay, beaded looped edging. So if you haven't heard me talk about this before, this is what I mean by it. The little beaded looped picot thingies, which were inspired by Brenda Sampler's finish of hats. I think it was Annie Morris. She showed it on Instagram a few months ago. The finishing was done by Joy, the professional finisher that she uses, and it was absolutely beautiful. I went gaga over it and started experimenting with it myself. And so I think that spring might be able to take a little bit of beaded looped edging with this beautiful brownie tanny crystal color. I don't think Rabbit and the Rose needed it, and one of the reasons for that is the close margins here. So I did my usual 3/8 of an inch from the outside of the design, and then realized once I turned this and finished it into a pillow that it could actually use a little more negative space and what I would call room to breathe. There is a lot going on in this design, and so pushing out the outside margins I think would actually both improve the finish, give it a little room to breathe, and then make visual room for an edging like this. So I did do that here on Seasons of the Heart. I really like the results. I think I'm going to do this on more of my stitches, and it's one of the reasons I think it might do well with a beaded looped edge to give it a little bit of pop. And so my question for you today is, if I do in fact do a beaded looped edge on this, it would be very easy for me to just film the process and make that into a tutorial. Do you want or need a tutorial on beaded looped edging? It is very simple, but it would also be very simple for me to do a tutorial if there is any interest in it. So let me know in the comments, and then perhaps by the next time I see you, I will have jazzed up Seasons of the Heart Spring. And again, all threads will be in the description below. This is my own colorway. One significant change is the house. Mine's a little darker, as you can see. I'm weak on tans, I found. I went looking in my silk stash for something that was similar to this color and really couldn't find it. So I'm gonna have to go out to Needle in a Haystack and remedy that particular weakness in my silk stash. But the slightly browner, brighter house actually really works here. It pops out the design a little bit and balances those bright and beautiful pinks. The pink I'd like to draw your attention to because it's one of my favorite colors. This is Soie Gobelins 2915, and for a really luscious, unapologetically pink, you cannot do better than 2915, which is just, isn't it gorgeous? I love it so much. So that, I think, is probably the end of my spring stitching. I'm not primarily a seasonal stitcher. I'm gonna do one patriotic piece this year, but after I finished Seasons of the Heart, I moved on back to my Christmas stitching. So if you're new to my channel, this year I am trying to do just a little bit of Christmas stitching every day, with the idea that when Christmas comes around next year, I will have lots and lots and lots of finishes to amp up my Christmas decorating, because Christmas is really the holiday for me. It is the one I decorate for, and I love, you know, a tree just bursting with homemade ornaments. So I got back to Christmas stitching after finishing Seasons of the Heart, and I went back to Christmas stitching with Brenda Gervais' Christmas tea. I am a tea drinker. I almost never drink coffee, and so this felt like a great pattern for me. And this is my start. The tea is the teacup? Yeah, the teacup is ghosting in this light. See, that is much better. I have reversed the colors from the pattern, which used a lighter ground and then a darker color for the teacup. So darker ground, lighter teacup, and I think that's going to work really well. And then I've done a very muted green here because I think that these more muted colors mean that the red, once you get it in, pops like crazy. So you are really going to get a lot of emphasis on the mice and the holly berries. And then I'm thinking about something new to do on the finishing for this one, which I'm looking forward to. I have to order some supplies. No, I said that last time. I will get all my ordering done and experiment with my new finishes and show them at some point, I swear. And then these are the threads that I'm using so far. This isn't a complete colorway yet, so I will post my colors for Christmas tea in the next episode when I see you again. So then the last thing I did since I saw you last was a little beaded scissors fob from Fernridge Collections. This is Herman the Hedgehog, and the backstory behind this is I taught at a seminar in late February, and one of my students had this on a pair of hedgehog scissors, which was a very cute and hilarious pairing. But I was really struck by this intense beaded tassel fringe thing. It was awesome in person, and I thought it was just something she had made or she had gifted. And then I saw the Addicts Market newsletter. They showed a different fob, and I realized that this was something I could buy and make myself. So I bought the kit, and I finally sat down and made it. And this is Herman the Hedgehog. He's got these little applied beaded fringe. Sorry, oh, isn't that great? And then this is just amazing. I've been thinking about what to do with this, so I wanted to try making this as an experiment to see how they were doing the fringe. I've done enough beading to know how I would do it, but I wasn't sure if my instinct was the correct way to do it, so I thought I would try this out. It was an interesting piece to do. The instructions are fairly comprehensive. If you're new to beading, the only thing I don't think they cover is starting, stopping, and changing your thread, but you can find most of that information on the internet. But the peyote stitch instructions, the finishing instructions are all very comprehensive. So this is Herman the Hedgehog, and I'm not going to use him as a scissors fob because I'm a weirdo who can't stand anything jangling from my scissors. I want just my scissors. I do not want this mess on them. It drives me nuts. It's really distracting. So scissors fob is totally out. I was wondering what on earth could you do with this other than hang it up in your house and admire its beaded ridiculousness. And then it occurred to me that it could be a fob for something else, like a project bag. I actually haven't made any project bags yet, but perhaps this will be the kick I need to get going on that because I have the perfect fabric for this. And a little roundabout story about it to stay with me. So this is a Liberty of London Tana Lawn. Aren't the colors a perfect match? This is one of the other reasons I decided to do Herman, because I knew I had this fabric available to me and that they'd be a beautiful pairing. And this is not just yardage. These are old pajamas that my mom made for me and that I wore through. But every time I do that, I keep the pajamas because you can't just throw away Liberty Lawn. That's against public policy. That's just wrong. But I'd never really figured out what to do with the old fabric. And now I think, project bag. It's gonna have to be a relatively small project bag, but that's fine because most of my cross stitches are small pieces and that won't be an issue. So a cute story about my mom, she makes me pajamas out of Liberty Lawn for every Christmas, birthday, usually Easter too, and I love them. They are so comfortable. The fabric is just so lightweight and soft, and yeah, you can see me creepily stroking it here because it really is wonderful, and I wear them all the time. I'm actually wearing a pair right now. I totally do the Zoom thing of wearing a proper top and then I've got pajamas on the bottom. I don't think I've worn actual pants in any of my YouTube videos at all because once you start with these, you just never want to take them off. So I think they are going to have a second life as a project bag to show off my wonderful little stitch of Herman the Hedgehog. I'll put the information about him in the description in case you'd like to do your own Herman or another Fern Ridge beaded fob. They are really fun and they can be ordered from your local needlework store. And then the last thing that I have for you today is a deep cut. This is from the archives, let me tell you. So we've chronicled a lot of my stitching journey here on Flosstube so far, how I got started, my journey with Cabinet of Curiosities, coming back to cross stitch, all of those things. But there is actually a preface to that, and I had half forgotten this myself. And that was how I found Cabinet of Curiosities. And the answer to that is that at that point I was a miniaturist. So I received, I think for my 8th birthday, a dollhouse from my parents. It was a finished dollhouse and it was totally empty. Not a stick of furniture in it. And a book on how to make dollhouse miniatures that was child friendly. I still have the book, actually. I've never gotten rid of it because it has so much sentimental value to me as something that started a real passion for me in making tiny and beautiful things. So I started making miniatures very young. I continued with that, you know, on and off into my 20s, and I was doing more intense advanced miniatures when I ran into Cabinet of Curiosities. A South African miniaturist had been making 1/12 scale 17th century casket forms. Absolutely incredible. These aren't still available. I'm going to link her blog post just because it's mind-blowing. And in reading about that, somebody mentioned the life-size versions, which were at that point just being produced by Thistle Threads and the accompanying Cabinet of Curiosities course. I started reading about it because I'm incurably curious, and that was what sucked me in. The idea of this amazing embroidered puzzle box with hidden spaces and hidden treasures and tiny toys that you could hide in the drawers was a captivating idea that I couldn't let go of as soon as it entered my brain. And then that launched me on embroidery, which has really become the defining passion of my life. But before there was embroidery, there were miniatures, and I was doing some embroidered miniatures as part of that. I know you're wondering when I was going to get to my point. It took me a while, but I'm finally there. And what I have to show you today are my embroidered miniature pieces that I recently dug out of a box. So this is one of my first ones. This was a kit, I think it was by Nicola Maskell, on 40 count silk gauze. It's a fire screen. that shows a pheasant, and it's kind of after a verdure tapestry, and then it's in a little pole screen that was a kit by McQueenie Miniatures. And then after I did that, I was feeling brave, so I embarked on a fire screen of my own design on higher count gauze. This is 58 count silk gauze, and this is a semi-original design after a piece in the Met. A miniaturist who worked with Elga Koster, who made the miniature caskets, had done this for a fire screen, and I was really captivated by it. So this was my version on 58 count silk gauze, and I never actually did finish it into a fire screen. It's supposed to be on a pole like this one, and it will, I swear, at some point finish doing that, but I am not very good with wood and I don't touch power tools, so unfinished job there, but a lovely little piece. Colors are obviously very characteristic of me. That's how you can tell I designed this piece and not someone else, because they use their colors and I use mine. And then the real star of this is a kit on 40 count silk gauze by Nicola Mascal, and this is a miniature needlepoint rug in 1/12 scale. It's a Napoleon III design. The kit is still available, and I will link it in the description if you are at all interested in making your own tiny needlepoint rug. And this is kind of just emblematic of my journey as a stitcher, because I had seen the kit and was like, oh, that's cool, I want to do that. I had never worked anything from a chart in my life at that point, and I decided to do this, and the chart was, I don't know, 30, 40 pages long. It's full coverage stitching on 40 count silk gauze. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I didn't know enough to be scared, or I would have freaked out, obviously. And so I made this. I still haven't actually, as you can see, turned under the edges and finished this so it could be used as a rug in a miniature room. But I did finish the stitching, and I recently blocked it because I worked this entire thing in hand. So this skew was horrible. It was a parallelogram, and it took me 3 tries to block this thing out into any semblance of a rectangle, but I got there eventually. So this is my miniature Napoleon III needlepoint rug. So yeah, that gives you about the actual scale there. And I was so enchanted with my little treasures when I dug them back out. They've been packed away for years, that I think I'm going to make a little room box to keep some of these in. It'll be a drawing room, because fire screen and fancy rug, that doesn't go in a kitchen. So the miniatures journey, it was for me a really fun dip into the past, and I hope you have enjoyed seeing them. It is counted work, although not the usual kind of thing that you see on Flosstube. But that's what I have for you today. Next time we will have FFOs, some updates on finishes, whip progress, and I am going to start a patriotic stitch. This is Blue Skin by Plum Street Samplers. I've got the perfect linen for it, and not really a seasonal stitcher, she says, having just sewn all kinds of seasonal stitches, but George Washington's horse is just a really cool historical footnote, and I'm gonna stitch it. So hopefully next time I'll have some progress to show you on Christmas tea, on Blue Skin, and maybe, if I get wild, some on my casket panel, because I would like to get back to that. I've just been exhausted and haven't been able to face decision making, but hopefully things will pick up and I'll get back to that. So that's what I have for next time. Let me know what you think about a possible tutorial for beaded looped edging, and I hope you will check out the kits for the rabbit and the rose, and also any feedback on what you might be looking for in future kits if we do proceed down that road would also be very helpful. Oh, the last thing I forgot to mention is that I have also started a mailing list on my website, actually 2 mailing lists. Link in the description. The first one is related to my surface embroidery classes that are coming on that, and then the second mailing list is specifically for Flosstube, cross stitch, kits such as the rabbit and the rose, so you can sign up for one or both depending on your interests if you want to be sure not to miss a future kit launch. So new mailing list, sign up if you're interested, and either way, I will see you again in 2 weeks for lots of progress and stitchy chat. Until then, happy stitching.